I don't know. On now. Good evening, everyone. It's 7:38. And sorry, I'm late. And Jamie, are we ready to go? We're done? I'm just seeing stuff on that doesn't matter. Okay, that's fine. Great. Good evening, everyone. Legislative session. We have, I think, a relatively long but interesting agenda. And we're going to start with the pledge and then go into the meeting. Pledge allegiance by United States of America and to the republic of one nation, God, and justice.
Trustee Fritchie. Trustee White. Trustee Casada.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Lopez.
Present.
And Mayor Levin.
Present.
Called, okay, Mayor and trustees announcements.
Anybody to my right? My left? Okay, a couple from me. First of all, amazing day today in Ossining for those of you that weren't able to make it. First, we started with a ribbon cutting at our community center. Took a walk around the new locker rooms, infrastructure improvement. That is really the beginning of one of our major advances. The new lockers, the pool has been redone, the surface, a new office, entrances, exits, LED lighting, which will save us a lot of money. The community center is really one of the most used facilities in the community center. I think for those that follow us, you know, it's really, for me, was the number one. I think Manny and I talked about this for a long time. Out of all the DRI projects, out of the money, the 500,000, right, Karen, from Sandy, it was 5, not 8. The 500,000 from Sandy Gala, a former assemblywoman, has just really been amazing, but not as amazing as the ribbon cutting today. And some of us were there when I walked around and a mom with 2 kids walked up and said, listen, I use the place, my children use it, my older children learn to swim here. We live so close to the Hudson. The whole idea of really starting with the pool and improving, and then the youth bureau is going to get improved, and all the stuff that we're doing, even though prices have gone up from our original numbers because of the cost escalations. That melted my heart because as somebody that lives here, and you've got little kids, and I know, and we have a lot of issues with the Hudson and people who may not know how to swim. It's a really big deal. There's a shortage of lifeguards in the country and especially in the New York area. So that made our day, at least my day, not to mention it was a beautiful day. So congrats to the staff, everybody that put everything together. I don't mean the ribbon cutting. I mean really getting the community center off the ground in the really big project. And we're probably, not probably, we are. And I think we're going to hear from village manager a little bit more about the community center in her report today. Fantastic. It's open 7 days a week. It's one of the most affordable community centers, one of the most affordable camps that runs through there. Parks and Community Center. We have a great committee of volunteers from the community that manages a lot. So super excited. And then in the afternoon, one of my other favorite things, and we were there again, is Pride. It's a flag raising for Pride. Ossining, some communities doing, not enough communities do this, but this is our 5th year of raising the Pride flag that hangs also with the Juneteenth flag, and we do it for the whole month. Great opportunity for people to learn about what is happening. Every year there are slightly different issues in the gay community. We had a very nice turnout. And what I said to Christina Picciano, who runs this, and she works intimately with Loft, which is the county level. I mean, we're just a village, you know, there's cities and then there's county. Every year it gets bigger, and every year it's a new education for what's going on, issues. Right now, there are concerns about teens in that community. Always an issue, and mental health also an issue. So I was really happy. Aside from the fact it was a beautiful day to be in downtown Ossining and to drink. Did you get your iced coffee?
Coffee lemonade.
It was really terrific. So very much appreciate. So it was a very nice day, and it also talked a lot about acceptance of people and how in Ossining we have so much diversity and that people really do take care of their neighbors. And so that is one of the reasons I live here. I think it's one of the reasons many people live here. We have, is it tomorrow, and the village manager will talk about more. We are encouraging people to come learn more about some of the other DRI projects which are happening down by the waterfront. So there will be a community engagement on that from 2 to 8 at Here Coffee on Thursday and 10 to 12, right, Karen? And you'll talk more about 10 to 12 on Saturday at Here Coffee by the waterfront. They're drop-bys. It's not 6 hours of us talking. Some of us will be there, some of the staff. It's an engagement to see what people want there and also to see, what they don't want there. A lot of people move out of cities to come to villages for a reason. Others want to build up more. So we're going to learn a lot. We always do. So that's 2 community engagements. Tell me again about, I know it's a conflict, but at Karma Lounge, the chamber is having a mixer tomorrow. What time? 7 to 9. Sorry, you mentioned as I was coming in, and I've already so the chamber is always reaching out to new members who have businesses, etc. So there's a mixer at Karma Lounge tomorrow. Since I see that you're sitting here, I thought I would throw that out there. And what else? Thank you. And I think that's it for our yep, that's it. So what's next on the agenda?
Special presentation, OSHA proposed rulemaking for firefighters, fire brigade standard. Trustee Fritchie?
Thank you. Jamie, whenever you're ready.
Nice.
So just to give you a little background on this and why I'm talking about this, the OSHA has put down some unfunded, not some, but a lot of unfunded mandates that will affect your fire department, our fire department, all the fire departments throughout the state. You can go to the next slide, please. So the changes to the OSHA Fire Brigade Standard 1910-156 will impact your fire department. Next slide. So the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, recently proposed significant changes to the OSHA Fire Brigade Standard 1910-156. The new OSHA 1910-156 rule, Emergency Response Standard, if approved in its current form, will dramatically change the face of fire service in New York and across the nation. Just so you know, there's 27 states that are affected by OSHA. We happen to be one of them. The tumultuous impact created by these changes will be felt by volunteer, combination, and career departments alike. Next slide, please. While the goal of the new rule is to further protect the safety of the emergency responders, it was crafted in a vacuum and does not reflect the challenges that emergency response agencies face in the real world. While the fire service fully agrees that responder safety is of paramount importance, that goal must be balanced with the abilities and resources of the agencies responsible for those individuals. After careful review, it is apparent that many of the changes and new requirements will negatively impact already struggling response agencies. In fact, the new standard could hamper recruitment and retention efforts and even cause many firefighters to leave the service. Despite this bureaucratic good intentions, this new rule could actually decrease firefighter health and safety. Next slide. There's a 608-page document published by OSHA. Contains data and stories as to why the changes are needed. Based on our real-world experience, we question the reliability of some of the data and theories used to produce this proposal. Rather, there are less intrusive actions that fire service organizations could take that would have immediate positive impacts on firefighter safety and create little or no additional burdens. Several of these areas have been untouched by proposed standard, while costly and time-consuming requirements have been made their way into the proposed regulation. 22 National Fire Protection Association standards have been fully incorporated into the new OSHA standard by reference, with another 14 included in part. This means that any place that NFPA standards shall or must, the AHJ would be responsible to adhere to them. Next slide, please. These changes will have major implications on every AHJ, fire officer and firefighter. Our concern here is not merely that they are unfunded mandates. Again, remember that unfunded mandates. The unattainable nature of this proposed standard virtually ensures that many departments will be in non-compliance. You jump on me already?
They have. You were good until that one.
Should be slide 7. Back 2.
All right, she'll get it.
All right, we'll get it. The OSHA document can be found here, and there's a couple of links here. They're not live off of this, but if you need them, I'm more than willing to give them to you. All right. So FASNY, the Firefighters Association of the State of New York, did a volunteer firefighters impact study. And volunteer firefighters save New York State $3 billion annually. I ain't go to the next slide. The 100,000 volunteers fighting fires across New York State save taxpayers more than $3 billion annually, according to the Firemen's Association of the State of New York. The association says the new economic impact study, tax savings and economic value of the volunteer firefighter in New York, ooh, that's a mouthful, is the most in-depth of its kind. The savings are realized not only because the volunteers aren't paid wages, but because fundraising by volunteer departments reduces the need to levy taxes for equipment and operations. The report also found that fire response time across the state are getting better because of the recent addition of the more than 20,000 volunteer firefighters through the federal staffing and adequate fire and emergency response grant. Next slide, please. So highlights of the study include an additional 30,822 career firefighters would be necessary to convert the state to an all-paid service. The annual cost of an all-career service would be $3.87 billion. There would be a one-time cost of $5.95 billion to acquire existing stations, structures, vehicles, and equipment. Approximately 1,300 stations would have to be built, new, or reconstructed. Property taxes would rise between 3.3 to 123%, with an average increase of 26.5%. As a result of increasing the number of volunteers in recent years, average response time was reduced by 2.5%. Almost done. So a brief summary of this impact of these unfunded mandates will end up on the taxpayer's lap. You need to reach out to your local electeds, senators, assembly persons, and inform them of the difficulties that the volunteer fire departments, especially our smaller rural departments, will severely struggle to meet these unfunded mandates, causing them to either combine with other municipalities and or close their doors. A couple examples. Physicals. We do annual physicals in the department. Everybody does. On an average cost of $300 to $375 per firefighter. Under this mandate, they will go anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 per interior firefighter. So 50 firefighters would be $75,000 to $150,000. 100 firefighters, $150,000 to $300,000. And that's my last slide. So just a little highlight. So there's a retired chief from the FDNY, 35 years of service. If this goes through, he lives in Long Island. Qualifications that they've added to this, he would not be able to be a volunteer chief. They've added a lot of training. Right now, our training for our new kids is about 160 hours. And don't seem like it's a lot. It's about 6 months. They're going to double that to 320. Again, nobody in the state is against safety. All right. But as taxpayers, it's important you go on and you comment as a taxpayer. Not that I disagree with it, but with a sensible comment saying, you know, I'm a taxpayer. This is an unfunded mandate. This is very important. We need to get an extension. We're trying to get a seat at the table with FASNY and the legislators. I believe 43 congressmen or congresspeople have signed on to a letter against this. I know the Conference of Mayors is against it. We need to get our voice out there. It's not only us, the firefighters, but it's you as the taxpayers, because ultimately it's going to be on your lap to pay the bill. So with that said, this is an informational thing. Please, anybody wants any more information, reach out to me. You know how to get a hold of me. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Questions, comments? Good, Rena?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'm sorry, could you just explain to me, Bob, why is OSHA doing this? Why are they basically requiring that volunteer fire departments go to all paid?
No, it's they go through their standards and they decided that this is something that they want to push. This came out, I believe, in late February. And since then, we've been putting the push on. We've gotten one extension. We've just got another extension till July 21st. Now, I don't know what happens after July 21st if we don't get another extension.
So
OSHA could turn around and say, here you are, here's 1910-156, you have to adhere to it. You'd have 2 years to get to that, but that's not enough time to do everything that they have. I have something printed out that has 27 bullet points of items that they want that would really affect the department. So please, get out there and go on fasny.com, just like it sounds, and look for OSHA 1910-156. Please make a comment. Is that it, Dana?
All right, so I just want to add a little context. I went to the New York Conference of Mayors. That group, which includes all of the mayors outside of the city of New York. The city of New York is its own sort of inside of New York State, a government. It includes small towns, villages, and some of the larger cities like, Yonkers and White Plains, and those are different governmental structures. There was a lot of conversation about this because in Western New York and Northern New York, things cost the same. It doesn't matter if you only have, 1,500 people in a community. You need a fire truck and it's $1.3 million a truck. It doesn't matter that your entire budget for the year to pay for everything is like $2 million. I mean, they simply can't afford it. So that was one issue that, New York State's complicated in that sense. And there's some serious concerns. So we're here to also not just talk about ourselves, talk about New York State as a community, as one of X number of states involved. OSHA is a federal agency. So a village like ours has no say in what OSHA does. It's an agency. It's not elected. It's an agency that reports on the federal level. And what I learned, which is what Bob just said, is that there wasn't really a seat at the table for firefighters, actually. And there's a difference between like New York City, where they're all paid and all those houses are maintained. In villages like ours and most of New York State, they're volunteers. They work. You hear the alarms go off. They leave their jobs. Many of them don't get paid or don't get paid the same amount, and they run to wherever they have to. That means that when they train, they do it on their dollar and lose their income or time with their family or use their vacation. And as it happens, because Ossining is always special, we have the largest volunteer fire department in the state of New York. And so for us, this is like a really big deal. And I'm just putting a little context,
I know, I was
which
going to add to it. Okay.
and it's important that individuals comment on this so that OSHA sees that there is a concern, that the firefighters want to have a seat at the table because they actually weren't asked. And no one's arguing safety, but there is such a huge cost to this in time. And if the public doesn't know, it has been very difficult to find volunteer firefighters. There is not exactly a line out the door. There are incentive plans being put in place to get firefighters. It's a hard gig and it's a dangerous gig. And not everyone wants to do that. And we have a shortage in New York State. And with this, I think the concern that you're stating is that you believe this is dire, not
Oh, no,
just
we have to.
this is their biggest issue. And it just sort of happened. an agency in the federal government just says, we think, and they do. And it all goes downstream, as I like to say, to communities like ours who can't afford it and nobody gives us money for it. And our taxpayers are really at wit's end as far as what they're already paying for. So I wanted to put into context specifically for Ossining because the 5 of us are about Ossining, not the rest of the world, just Ossining. And for us, this is very important that our citizens and our public officials as well reach out to state legislators to get them to go up the hill, so to speak, to let OSHA know that this is problematic for us at a very real level.
So just a couple of things. In our department, we have very qualified members, very qualified. Our chiefs, our officers are all qualified. They're going to double their training with this. So what would happen is we'd have no, I've been a member since 1979. You do the math. I wouldn't be able to be a firefighter because there's no grandfather clause. I would have to go through that 300 hours of training to become a firefighter again. So again, it's not about not being safe. We all believe in safety. We train safety. I'm a safety officer in the department. We train on safety. So that's not the question here. The question is a lot of this is, all of it is unfunded. And it's be a huge impact on the tax base. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving right along, Village Manager Karen Dottori.
Good evening, everyone. As the mayor said, a lot is going on, and this is a continuation from last week and the weekend. I know that with so much going on, the mayor was also at the Juneteenth flag raising on Saturday, which is in honor of Juneteenth. And we're very excited about that too, being able to honor all segments of our community and the contribution they've made to our history. So that was another great event. As the mayor mentioned, the pool opening was, the official pool opening was today, even though people have been swimming for a bit. We have brand new locker rooms, a family changing room, a lot of things, all thanks to, in large part to a $500,000 grant from Sandy Galiff, which did help pay for those renovations. And we also have more renovations to come. We are in the process. We're just going to, next week, we're going to start interviewing architectural design firms to select one who will design and help us with designs to renovate the entire community center, which is badly in need of a facelift. So we're excited about that too. That is also part of our downtown revitalization initiative. Grant funding will go to that. That was a $10 million grant we got a couple of years ago to do a series of projects. And as the mayor said, the community center is a central one. We also got another $10 million grant because why just get one when you can get two? But this one is particularly important to us. On last Thursday, the governor announced
Wednesday.
Was it Wednesday?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Last Wednesday, the governor announced the award of the Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund. And that was $150 million that was dispersed to various municipalities for infrastructure projects and projects that support housing development. The mayor and our water superintendent, Andy Teese, were on hand to receive a $10 million award to the village of Ossining that will go towards the construction of our new water treatment plant. The reason this is so important is our water treatment plant planning was initiated in 2015, 2016. All through that process, all through that time, the village has been anticipating the cost that this will incur on water ratepayers in the village and town of Ossining. We've built up a reserve in the water fund thanks to the astute work of our treasurer, who is Dale Brennan, who is here tonight, and she'll be speaking later or commenting perhaps. Of course, when you plan something for that long, costs go up. COVID was a big cost increase factor. The bid came in at about $100 million. So this grant money does a lot to offset the impact that this has on the water ratepayers and help us with the reserve that we've already put into the water fund to make sure we can mitigate the impact on residents here in the town and village. And the total that we've received in grant funding for the water treatment plant is actually 18 million, or very near 18 million. And that includes a little over $5 million in other grants we've gotten for the construction, as well as $2.5 million in American Rescue Plan funds that were all designated for the construction of the water treatment plant. The other thing that I think is important to note is we have a great workforce development program being run by our youth bureau. So this year, this summer, it's the second summer we're doing it. Youth in the community can get paid for work that they do for local businesses and organizations, and we'll have some of them working at the Village of Austin too. There are still some slots left, and the program is funded by the County of Westchester, and it's administered through our youth bureau. Children get, or youth get workforce training, career training, leadership training, and they are also able to work for various businesses and organizations and get paid by the county. So the businesses themselves don't even have to pay for this and get free services while we provide really good training for our young people. That is my report for tonight. Oh, and the Here Coffee, just a reminder, the mayor did mention Here Coffee. We will be there down at Station Plaza. Here Coffee, we will be talking about the ideas for planning and zoning in that area, what people would like to see in conjunction with some of the other projects that we're doing, which include a solar array at the train station and some streetscaping work. So we will be there from 2 to 8 p.m. tomorrow and from 10 to 12 p.m. on Saturday. So we look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Sorry, Stu, I know.
It's okay.
It's your job. I
That's
got
okay.
it.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Yes, I can. No problem. Next Tuesday is a zoning board of appeals meeting, and the agenda is online. The meeting can be viewed either in person at the operations center or via Zoom, and you can also see all documents relating to the matters that are on that agenda. Tonight's agenda is a busy one. It does include 2 resolutions calling for public hearings on local laws that have been discussed by the board in work session. It also includes a resolution to adopt a local law changing or revising the definition of refreshment business under Chapter 147 of our code. There is also a resolution referring another zoning text amendment, this dealing with the Indian Brook Croton Gorge intermunicipal overlay district to the planning board. So the planning board can sound off on that recommendation. I can say that last night, that very bit of legislation was discussed by the Environmental Advisory Council, and they gave a thumbs up to that as well. We expect to get something in writing from them as well. Last, I do want to just give my thanks to particularly the folks at the building department. Recently, we've had a number of matters that village have brought directly to state Supreme Court relating to issues involving buildings. We have one building in particular where the building owner cut into the foundation without permission, without a permit, and we were able to get into state Supreme Court, get the stop work order enforced, and it is still in effect. We have another building where finally, with all the stop work orders and with the threat of basically evicting the commercial tenants, we're pleased to say that that owner has submitted all their documentation, and we expect that a permit will be issued very, very shortly. We mention this because it is an option that we have in the village to not take everything to simply justice court here, but to in fact go to state Supreme Court, where the judges are very much aware of the problems that can occur in buildings, particularly buildings that do not have permits, specifically relating to electrical or plumbing or other issues like that. So we just want to make folks aware that there are other cases in the queue that will be brought soon in state Supreme Court. and to just be aware of it, because where we get a particular complaint that deals specifically with safety issues such as cutting into a foundation, we will most likely bypass going to this court, and instead we'll go directly to state Supreme Court, where again the ability of the court to issue immediate relief to the village and to the tenants in that building is stronger. Thanks, folks.
Captain Brendan Donahue.
Good evening. Busy days here at Ossining Police, but a few things of note. We're currently working hard to button up our documents and proofs for New York State accreditation every 5 years. For those that aren't aware, we are reaccredited by New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services. It's a very rigorous process. They really come in and conduct a very thorough on-site audit that lasts several days. New York State accreditation is a voluntary process, but it's something that we participate in to ensure that we meet the highest standards set forth by the state. Shows that our commitment to maintaining best practices, and it also lowers potential liability to the village should there be some kind of litigation related to our services. So we're actively working very hard on that, particularly Sergeant McGovern and Lieutenant Lance are working very hard on that to make sure that the creditors, the auditors are happy when they show up, and that's going very well. We're also in the process of interviewing candidates for hire police officer positions. As you know, we've interviewed 16 candidates for 2 positions as of right this moment. Trustee White participated in a number of those interviews. We had a really terrific crop of folks that we spoke to this go around. Certainly not always easy decisions, and we have to strategize who to hire now versus potentially look at later if we get additional positions in the future. It's always a bit of a chess game in these things, but really we've met some really incredible people and moving forward with shortly. In our ongoing public safety mission on the roadways, we just completed Click It or Ticket Week. There are a number of state initiatives that we are encouraged but not required to participate in. And one of those is Click It or Ticket Week. So we wrote a very impressive, I think, 97 summonses for parties not wearing their seatbelt or for children not buckled into safety seats. I think this is a really impressive number, really shows the patrol force's commitment to these public safety issues. And it also influences future grant funding from New York State. So participation in these initiatives and really our enthusiasm in these initiatives can bring in greater state level funding for enforcement going forward. It's Speed Week now, so we will continue to be out there and issuing summonses for people who are speeding. I would remind the public that even if you're the person who calls and complains about speeding on your street, you are not immune to getting a summons if you are found, in fact, to be speeding on your street. So
I feel like that's something that must have happened if you're actually using that as an example.
all the time, Mary. All the time. I'm always the one who calls about the speeding. So yes, it is. It does happen frequently. But we remind people to keep an eye on their speedometers, and we will continue to participate not only in the state initiatives, but when there is not a state initiative, have local initiatives that we are working on as well. I would welcome the public or anyone who's interested to email their traffic concerns to traffic@ossiningpolice.com. Obviously, people aren't going to call every time they see an issue if it's not emergent. If that speeder just went by, there's maybe not be something we can do in that moment. But if you have a regular occurrence, have a safety concern, traffic@ossiningpolice.com. We'll go out, we'll conduct a traffic study. We'll actually try to get to the root of the problem. Sometimes these things are perception. Sometimes on our roads in this beautiful village, 30 seems like a lot faster. But with the technology we have, we can do a traffic study and find out just how warranted the concerns are and put our staff where they're doing the best work. And then finally, the last part of traffic road safety is DWI. Always an ever-present threat on our roadway. especially now that the warm weather is upon us. We are making sure to put extra effort into DWI enforcement. We are planning joint exercises or joint enforcement details with our police neighbors, Village of Croton and Village of Briarcliff Police Departments, doing some details on our borders with them. We'll also be looking to get the county involved. They have a roadside testing trailer. We can conduct DWI testing right at roadside, which streamlines the whole process. And so we're looking forward to making a bit of a splash with that and reminding people that this is this is not the place to drive drunk. Encourage folks to not roll the dice and not test their luck, but to be responsible and safe. And we can all have a good summer. That's all I have for you tonight.
Great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Organization announcements. Announcement shall be event related only and shall be no longer than 2 minutes in length. Is there anyone here that wants to speak about an organization announcement?
An organizational event
Event. I
announcement.
apologize. Event.
No, that's all right. You said it.
Jamie, is there
Is
anyone on the
yours an
virtual world?
organization? Yeah.
Oh,
Are you
no.
doing an organizational event announcement or something else? Okay. Anybody? I know we have a bunch of people on Zoom. Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Moving right along, public comment on agenda items. Visitors shall be accorded a 4-minute opportunity to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda. I have a list here. We did ask the people that wanted to speak that are present to sign in. And I apologize in advance if I do not pronounce your name correctly. Umair?
I just want to also say that there are people on Zoom. We will get you afterwards. If you could state your name and residence or where you are, etc.
Okay, thank you. You actually got my name pretty well. Good evening, board. My name is Umair Azar. I'm a member of the Muslim community in Ossining, and I would like to talk about the adoption of the IHRA definition, working definition of anti-Semitism. I'm just going to move this a little up so I'm not bending over it. Respecting the religion of Judaism and its followers is essential, right? And while there are aspects of this definition that address that, there are many aspects of this there are other points in this definition that are controversial, conflate multiple issues, contradictory, and do not adequately address anti-Semitism. To begin with, this definition has been criticized by multiple Jewish groups, such as Jewish Voices for Peace, Independent Jewish Voices, the If Not Now movement, and also has been criticized by over 120 scholars on the Holocaust, including the leading author of this definition, Kenneth Stern, who have all voiced concern over its use, making it a very controversial definition within the Jewish community. Second, this definition conflates anti-Semitism and government critique. For example, this definition states that calling Israel a racist state is anti-Semitic. So if a Jewish member of Jewish Voices for Peace were to call Israel an apartheid state, as stated by Amnesty International, he or she could be labeled anti-Semitic because apartheid by nature is racist. To add on, under this definition, students, whether Jewish, Muslim, Christian, or any other faith that are protesting against the ICJ deemed plausible genocide in Palestine and chanting from the river to the sea, they could also be labeled anti-Semitic. Therefore, this definition conflates anti-Semitism, which is hostility and prejudice towards the Jewish faith, with the critique of a government's policies. Exactly 7 out of 11 points in this definition are related to Israel, a government which has been around for 76 years, while anti-Semitism has been around for centuries. Third, this definition is contradictory. On one point, it states that Jews as a whole cannot be held responsible for the actions of Israel, which I agree with. But on the other hand, it deems opposition to Israel to be anti-Semitic and an attack on Jews as a whole. This is a contradiction. Finally, this definition limits academic dialogue, stifles Palestinian human rights movements, and infringes on freedom of speech. I understand that this is a non-legally binding definition, but it sets a precedent for the future if the board were ever to make it legally binding. This would be the first definition considered and perhaps the only one. So I implore the board to table this resolution and spend time learning about alternative definitions, such as the Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism that addresses anti-Semitism adequately. One that it does not conflate multiple issues, is precise, and protects not only Jewish people, but also Arabs who are Semites as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yaya,
Good evening, Mayor, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Good
My name
evening.
is Yaya Lazrak, and I'm a resident of Ossining living on Terrace Avenue. I'm here to also express my concerns in opposition to the adoption of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism by our Board of Trustees. First and foremost, let me be clear that anti-Semitism is a serious issue that demands our attention and action. However, the IRA definition and its accompanying guidelines is an illiberal document, not intended for legal definitions, and has no place as village policy. One major issue with the IRA definition is its potential to conflate legitimate criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism. For instance, one of the illustrative examples provided is applying double standards by requiring of Israel a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. This can be interpreted in ways that label any critical discourse about Israeli policies, especially those related to human rights violations, as anti-Semitic. This risks stifling free speech, diversity of thought, and liberal values our village holds dear. I have considered myself grateful, lucky, and blessed to live in a place that values diversity and inclusion as cornerstones of our community and our democracy. Adopting a definition that might suppress legitimate political discourse sets a dangerous precedent. It is vital that we distinguish between anti-Semitism, which is abhorrent and must be condemned, and legitimate political criticism, which is essential to a healthy democracy. Additionally, the IRA definition has been criticized for its vague language and potential misuse. Civil liberties organizations, including the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, argue that the definition's broad wording could chill speech and silence activism, particularly those advocating for Palestinian rights. We should be cautious about endorsing a definition that prominent civil liberties groups believe could infringe upon First Amendment rights. This document is so controversial that the Biden administration chose to create their own definition rather than use it. As a progressive village, why would we take on a definition promoted by the political right? Furthermore, the IRA definition has been used to justify actions against pro-Palestinian advocates and academic freedom. It has been the backbone of the Republican attacks of university presidents, liberal institutions, and progressive organizations. Instances where the definition has been applied inappropriately highlight the risks of its misuse in our community, potentially leading to censorship and discrimination against those who engage in legitimate political activism. I urge the board to vote against the proposal to use the IRA definition and guidelines and to continue to send the right message about the values Ossining aspires to. I want to continue to be proud to live here and to know that we are a village that opposes hate, and also know better than to conflate hate with valid political critiques. If you aren't able to vote no tonight, I urge you to table this matter for further discussion. Let us commit to fighting injustice and bigotry in all its forms, but let us do so in a manner that respects and upholds our fundamental values. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
thank you. Fazia?
Good evening,
Good evening.
everybody. Hi. So as we've heard, the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism refers to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. It's very particular. And that is what, the Board of Trustees of Ossining is supposed to be voting on adopting, even in its non-legally binding state later on this evening. This definition has been used, as several other people have already said, to assert that criticism of Israel and Zionism are both anti-Semitic actions. They are anti-Jewish and therefore discriminatory against Jews. This is an extremely dangerous conflation. In the US Congress, proposed bills that would make the IRA definition into law would connect these charges of anti-Semitism to the support of terrorism. They threaten, in fact, to criminalize protest, to defund schools, to ban teaching about racism. They target BIPOC and Jewish organizations fire supportive professors. I should know because I am an academic and I am seeing this happening all across US campuses, as I'm sure you're all reading, including my own in New Jersey, about evicting students, deporting immigrants, undoing DEI policies, and the most important, excusing genocide. Wherever it is already policy, this definition has been used to smear, defund, and in some cases, criminalize those who oppose racism, colonialism, and genocide, and those who speak up for Palestinian voices and rights. Is this what our esteemed members of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining really want? To muzzle dissent and questioning by refusing citizens' rights to criticize the policies of states that are doing wrong things? Let me ask you, are we terrorists and anti-American if we criticize the actions of the United States government? Were Vietnam protesters terrorists and anti-American? History would suggest quite otherwise. As a Pakistani American, I have been a big critic of the government of Pakistan and of Islamic radicalism and extremism. Does that make me Islamophobic as a Muslim? I don't think so. So with that preamble, I would just urge you to recognize that the IRA definition of anti-Semitism is ironically anti-Semitic in itself because it seeks to conflate criticism, valid criticism of the state of Israel and its genocidal policies with the dangerous and awful thing that we know as anti-Semitism. Such a conflation actually implies that thousands of brave Jews who have been protesting since the beginning of the genocide in Gaza against Israeli actions in Gaza are also therefore anti-Semitic. That makes no sense. Many examples of anti-Semitism that have been given in this definition make it very clear that this definition is not meant to protect Jews from anti-Semitism, but simply to silence criticism of Israel as well as to whitewash its history, which includes the ethnic cleansing of a native population, as well as a long history and shameful history of violence and discrimination. We do
I
not
just have to say that twice already. The time's been up.
Yes, thank you very much
I
for
was
listening
waiting
to me.
a natural conclusion,
Thank
but
you.
I do want to hold on to that.
Yes. Okay, Nora? Okay, close.
Jamie, you're doing the time, right? Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Noura Mbebi. It was great. What you said. I am an Ossining resident. I've lived here for 7 years. And I too have concerns about the resolution D in this agenda for tonight. The IHRA's working definition of anti-Semitism has unfortunately been used to silence and repress nonviolent resistance, academic and journalistic freedom, and human rights work that legitimately address crimes by the Israeli government and military, in spite of what the definition itself claims, that criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic. And Ken Stern, as my fellow residents have mentioned, the main drafter of this definition, and many others have expressed concerns that this definition is being weaponized by the Zionist right and used as a blunt quote. This is their quote, a blunt instrument to label anyone an anti-Semite. So these vague definitions, this specific one, is a political tactic to cast a wide net of power, because the more vague the definition, the more open to interpretation, and the greater the number of people who could be smeared as anti-Semitic. But more importantly, to push for this problematic definition during an ongoing genocide with over 40,000 Palestinians killed by the IDF, when resistance is so critically needed at all levels, is really especially troubling to me. Just as it is my right to criticize the disturbing rise of Christian nationalism here in the United States and the settler colonial genocidal founding of this country without being labeled anti-Christian, similarly, it is my right to criticize Israel for its apartheid system, for the violence perpetrated against its victims in the name of Zionism, for its mass displacement and wholesale massacre and starvation of Palestinians here and now. To silence these voices does not afford Jewish people protection from hate. It protects the Israeli government from criticism. To be clear, I have no doubt that anti-Semitism is alive and well in our society and our country, but this definition actually redirects our attention away from bigotry faced by Jewish people and towards the so-called rights of a highly militarized Israeli state. So I ask all of you, Board of Trustees, have you read and compared other definitions of anti-Semitism, for example, the Jerusalem Declaration?
This is not a question and answer period. The way this is written, and people often do come here and ask questions, the way it's set up is that the public has a right to address its elected officials at this moment in time. We don't actually answer. We're here to listen.
Okay. So I'll just end by saying there are some great definitions that are much more clear. They're very detailed, specific, and they prioritize the welfare of Jewish people in every example that they present, not only some of the examples of anti-Semitism. And it would personally make me proud to see Austining adopt a much clearer definition. I think it's our role to seek out the most justice-based definitions rather than accepting the loudest or the most institutionally powerful definitions or a majoritarian view at face value. I hope the floor will be open to these alternative definitions and perspectives tonight, because I think it really behooves us to treat this issue with a lot of care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ola?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Ola Nasser. I lived in Briarcliff, town of Austining, for over 50 years. And I'm here also to talk about this IHRA issue. I think Islamophobia is an issue. Anti-Semitism is an issue. But I think my being able to criticize, for example, the Saudi government, which is the owner of the two holiest sites for Muslims, which is Mecca, Medina, doesn't mean I'm an Islamophobe or that I'm an anti-Muslim. I can criticize my own country of Egypt and its government policies, but that doesn't mean, because it's a Muslim majority country, that I'm an Islamophobe or an anti-Muslim for any reason. So this bill, and I think it behooves the village to take some time, and I have copies for everybody here, of an alternative, a definition of what anti-Semitism here, and I will just pass these on to everybody. And I think this one is really zeroes in on anti-Semitism. It doesn't conflate any criticism of the state of Israel and its policies, which I think the world have seen what is happening, which is, beyond catastrophic. And I think this needs to be taken time by the village to look at the alternate definitions and do justice by what anti-Semitism is supposed to take care of. And it's supposed to take care of protecting anybody who labels anybody who's a Jewish person negatively. However, it doesn't have anything to do with making criticism, because this is our free country and we have the right to criticize, and our freedom of speech should not be muzzled or suppressed in any way. So if we see something being done wrong in any country, we should have the freedom of criticizing it. There shouldn't be anything that makes us say, well, no, I can't criticize this one, I can't criticize that one. We should be free, because that's what America's all about, being able to freely criticize. So I highly behoove you to look at this as an alternative and take your time to think clearly about making these decisions, and to table this decision and not make it today, or or say no to it today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Howard?
Evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here this evening. I'm a former resident of Ossining. Many years ago, I now live in New Rochelle, but I'm a Jewish person, so this is of extreme interest to me. I see this happening a lot in our county and in our state, is that there are groups bringing these definitions to local city councils, especially at a time when Israel is being criticized prior to October 7th about its treatment of Palestinians, its ongoing occupation, its own denouncement of the two-state solution. And now all of a sudden we see these IHRA definitions being introduced. I'm very concerned as a Jewish person who holds Holocaust memory sacred, and weaponizing anti-Semitism in a political struggle is just horrifying to me and is not going to lead to remembering the Holocaust and preventing it in the future. Excuse me. I also want to quote to you what Kenneth Stern, the author of the IHRA, wrote about the use of this definition during the Trump administration. He writes, "If you think this isn't about suppressing political speech," this is a quote now, "contemplate a parallel. There's no definition of anti-Black racism that has the force of law when evaluating a Title VI case." This is when Trump brought up this definition in order to impose it on college campuses. If you were to craft one, would you include opposition to affirmative action as making someone a racist? Opposing removal of Confederate statues, would that make you a racist? Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and special advisor, wrote in the New York Times, I'm still quoting the author, that the definition makes clear that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. I'm a Zionist, but this is Kenneth Stern about himself. I am a Zionist, but on a college campus where the purpose is to explore ideas, anti-Zionists have a right to free expression. I suspect that if Kushner or I had been born into a Palestinian family displaced in 1948, we might have a different view of Zionism, and that need not because we vilify Jews or think they conspire to harm humanity. Further, there's a debate inside the Jewish community whether being Jewish requires one to be a Zionist. I don't know if this question can be resolved. I would say the same thing, but I'm still quoting him. But it should frighten all Jews that the government is essentially defining the answer for us. As Jews, we know that fighting anti-Semitism and building Jewish safety depend on mobilizing a broad cross-section of people to defend inclusive, multiracial, multi-faith democracies and to hold governments to account for their mistreatment of citizens, migrants, and indigenous peoples. We must combat anti-Semitism without fanning the flames of racism and Islamophobia. We stand at a very dangerous moment when a small minority of loud voices claim that criticism of the state of Israel's policies and actions constitutes anti-Semitic hate speech. We must stand for care, safety, and healing for all. The IRA definition fans the flames of division and polarization. It dangerously conveys Judaism with Zionism and with support for the policies of the state of Israel. No one should be accused of being a Zionist because they are Jewish. No one should be accused of anti-Semitism because they do not support Jewish supremacy in Israel. All of these are political
your
speech
time's
that
up.
makes us uncomfortable.
Thank
I'd
you.
appreciate it if you would consider other definitions of IRA
Thank you.
as other
Thank you
speakers
very
have
much.
spoken. Thank you.
Andrew?
Evening, Mayor and trustees. I'm Andrew Courtney. I've done jail time.
And you're from Ossining?
No, I'm not. I wish I were. I'm from neighboring Croton. I prefer Ossining. If I had to move today, I would move. I'm serious. You have a fabulous high school, and I love the feeling of diversity and inclusion as I walk the streets by Market Square to your great bookshop and around this town. So I just had to say that. I've done jail time because I'm a big believer in practicing democracy. I'm a big believer and activist for attaching myself to the anchor, the primary anchor of democracy, which is dissent. And I did many short-time jail time because I was an active nonviolent dissenter for the American war against Vietnam. 58,000 American young men and women killed, 3 million Vietnamese killed. I was an active nonviolent dissenter for the American war against Iraq. 6,000 young Americans killed, 300,000 Iraqis in that war. I will continue to be an active, nonviolent, anti-war dissenter in my life in a freedom bus with Rosa Parks, with Frederick Douglass, with Rabbi Herschel, and with Thomas Paine as my partners on that bus. I will not ever be accused of being un-American or anti-American or anti-Christian because of my belief in that kind of dissent as a practice of democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greg?
Good evening. My name is Greg Young. I'm an Ossining resident. I'm an Ossining business owner. I volunteer, as many of you know, here in Ossining as well, and I'm committed to this community. Before I read my prepared statement, I do want to respond to some of the statements made here previously. I disagree with the reading of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism that suggests in any way that one cannot be critical or criticize the actions of the Israeli government. I think that's important to make clear. It's nowhere in that reading, and I believe that to be a fallacy created to stir a debate that does not need to be had. That said, I will proceed with what I have prepared. My statement is actually in response to recent content online dialogue going around the Ossining community groups, putting pressure on people to act in a way that they might not agree. At the end of the Passover Seder, as many of you know, we say Lashana Haba B'Yerushalayim, we say next year in Jerusalem. It's a phrase used by Jews for many centuries. The connection between me personally and the land of Israel is a defining component of my existence as a Jew. No other person can tell me how my identity is defined, nor should they stand up in a community and tell me that my experiences as a Jew are somehow incorrect or unacceptable to them. More than 80 members of my family perished in the Holocaust. 6 survived. I have the list of the dead for anyone who cares to see it. The core reason for the murder of my family was the assertion that Jews are not European enough. To quote Hitler's Mein Kampf, quote, "It was and is the Jew who brings the Negroes to the Rhineland, always with the same secret, thought, and clear aim of ruining the white race by the necessarily resulting bastardization, throwing it down from its cultural and political height, and himself rising to be a master. For the racially pure people which is conscious of its blood can never be enslaved by the Jew," end quote. According to those who slaughtered 6 million Jews, we were not European enough to live. In 1941, the Farhud took place. It was a massacre of the Jews in Iraq. Between 180 and 600 Jews were killed, 900 homes destroyed. Jews were blamed for this. They were blamed for the actions of the British government. The Jews of the community were seen as a collective scapegoat for the events in a war of which they were not involved. I will not continue to list the millennia of persecution against Jews in which we have been labeled not blank enough to be seen, to be given equal rights in the places we live, whether it be the Dimi tax, Russian pogroms, or massacres in Hebron. Fast forward to 2024, I find my social media riddled with claims that Israel is a, quote, white European settler colony, a, quote, occupation of native Palestinian land since 1948. This narrative suggesting that the 1947 UN partition plan for a decolonized Levant should be contributed to a colonial endeavor of the white European Jew. I stand here now as my family has been subjected to pressure over the last 48 hours, pressure online, social media, group chats, under a misguided and unacceptable claim that the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism should not include my experience and my identity as a Jew with a 2,000-year-old dream to safely return to my ancestral homeland, free of crusades, pogroms, lost my spot. And death marches. As we have learned with the rise of diversity, ethics, and inclusion, the perceptions of the perpetrators will not define the experience of a Jewish family in Ossining. I further stand here with a deep political opposition to the actions of the Israeli government, to the actions of West Bank settlers, and to the settlement activity in the West Bank as a whole. And I fully support the right to question, criticize, and condemn the actions of the Israeli government. I disagree with those who spoke before me that that is somehow barred under this working definition. I will not, however, be silent when the Ossining community or perpetrators stand up with claims that the Jewish homeland of Israel does not have a right to exist, that the events of 1947 and 48 somehow fit the false narrative of white settler colonialism. Those people outwardly claiming that anti-Zionism should not pain me to my core, they don't define my place in America as a Jew with deep lingering pain of rejection by those who say go back to where you came from, generation after generation, century after century, millennia after millennia. I ask that the Village of Ossining adopt the IHRA anti-Semitism definition and protect the experiences of me, my family, my children, and the connection to the land of Israel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry?
Excuse me, Mayor, I wanted to let you know that there are 4 people with their hands up in the,
Okay, I think we'll bring them at the end, as we said in the
actually, we
beginning.
now have 5.
No, oh, 5, okay. Sue, how many more on the list?
This is the last one on the
Oh,
list.
okay. Hello.
Hi, my name is Sherry Horowitz and I am a neighbor. I live in Croton. And I will just want to say that when I criticized Israel for its war on Gaza, I am not a terrorist, I am not anti-Semitic, and I am not committing a hate crime. I am actually closely observing my Jewish values. As a Jew, I am practicing tikkun olam, the repair of the world. My Jewish tradition teaches me that while I am not obligated to complete the work of perfecting the world, I am obligated to continue that work. Jewish scripture also teaches me that whoever saves a single life is considered to have saved the whole world. Such a tenet is clearly the expression of the sanctity of all human life. To stand up and speak out against the murder, maiming, and starvation of tens of thousands of innocent Palestinian children, women, and men is clearly the compassionate, humane response to Israel's actions. It is the exact opposite of a hate crime. Criticism of Israel cannot be considered anti-Semitic. It's a false equivalency. What it does is erroneously and enormously increase the reporting of anti-Semitism, which then increases fear, which ultimately leads to more repression. I respectfully request, as did many of the previous speakers, that you take the time to review alternate definitions of anti-Semitism before adopting the resolution before you. It is important to adopt a more balanced, less politically motivated, and historically accurate description of anti-Semitism, so we don't create more fear and violence in the world. There are alternate definitions which must be considered, which don't include the divisive and polarizing new anti-Semitism linked to Israel in the IRA definition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to the online, the people that are on Zoom. I
So-
would ask you as Jamie pulls, oh, I apologize.
No, it's okay. You were probably going to say this, Sue, but Jamie Hoffman will bring each of, she'll call you by name. She will bring you over. And you'll also be given the same amount of time, which she'll announce as well.
Right.
And she's going to do it, I think, in the order that she sees it.
Well, I have the order in which the people.
It was,
raised their
it came
hands.
on, great.
Yes, but also I'll be, when you come on, if you can please turn on your camera and your microphone, that would be great.
And give your name.
So the first person is Jennifer Cabrera. Gonna just take a moment. Ms. Cabrera, if you could please turn off your camera and your microphone. Thank you.
Hi. You all know me and I hope you can hear me because I am actually at an event in New York City right now. which
Jennifer,
I
we're just gonna have to say Jennifer Cabrera from Austining, because all this stuff
I
gets.
am Jennifer
was.
Cabrera from Austining. I'm on a few village boards and a very active member of this community. I'm also the vice chair of the local working families party in Westchester and Putnam counties. So I'm sorry that I cannot be at a more appropriate distance from my phone, but I am at an event right now in New York City, and I have joined this meeting today when my phone is dying, and I will need to use it to get back home because this is important. I understand 100% and agree with the fact that anti-Semitism is on the rise and that the Village Board of Trustees has a responsibility to protect our Jewish neighbors and community members by opposing it in whatever way is possible. But right now, this definition is not the way to do it. You all on the board and many of you in the community know me as someone who is involved in police reform in Austining, and I worry about what happens when the village police department is now tasked with using a definition of anti-Semitism that includes criticism of Israel, and I have a quote from it, which I will read out. But what happens when someone is accused of a hate crime for having criticized Israel? That is a real slippery slope to charging people with hate crimes or with hate speech for speech that should be protected by the First Amendment. I would urge the Village Board of Trustees to do as many people on this call have urged you and find a more reasonable definition of anti-Semitism to put in place. So the part that I'll read out that does specifically call out criticism of the state of Israel is this. Manifestations might include the targeting of the state of Israel conceived as a Jewish collectivity. And yes, sometimes anti-Semitism does take that form, but very often it does not. And very often people are accused of anti-Semitism who are simply criticizing what Israel is doing. Right now, when we are in the midst of a very, very destructive war that is killing thousands of innocent people in Palestine, which is being funded by our taxpayer dollars, we cannot be adopting a definition that Republicans have been pushing. So I would urge you to consider other definitions of anti-Semitism that do not include criticism of Israel, because I agree we have got to protect everyone in this community, and that includes our Jewish brothers and sisters. But it does not mean that no one in this community can be allowed to criticize Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to bring you out back into a panelist mode. Okay, the next speaker is going to be Rabbi Dina Rosenberg. If you can turn your camera on and put on your camera, that would be great. Thank you.
The very least, the microphone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rabbi Dina Rosenberg. I'm a resident of Austining, and I'm the rabbi of Congregation Sons of Israel in Briarcliff Manor. And what I'm hearing today is painful, because what I see in this definition of IRA is saying that people cannot not criticize, but that it is unlawful to state that and to deny the Jewish people the right to self-determination. That's what we're talking about in terms of criticism. That's what it says in the IRA definition. And claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. And someone who spoke earlier made a comment about the ability to be able to say things like, from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free. Well, that in itself, that is the definition of saying that the state of Israel should not exist. That is the definition of genocide, of making that statement. So to say that Israel, who had no intention or desire to go into a war, that was attacked, people were raped, murdered, children killed purposefully, celebrations of people called Palestinians who called home from Hamas, right? To tell people how excited they were with how many children or women they raped or killed. To say that Israel intended to go in is false. And to say that we should be unable, that there's a problem with saying a statement like that, there is a problem with saying a statement like that. You are attacking the Jewish people. So I would urge you to adopt the statement. That is not saying you can't criticize Israel. It's saying you can't claim that they don't have a right to exist, that you support genocide. If you're saying that you believe that something terrible is happening in the Palestinian areas, I agree. You can still criticize the government of Israel, but to claim Israel went in with the intention, right? So genocide means you went into a war with the intention to destroy that people. Israel has never done that. Hamas, that is in their charter. So how could you possibly conflate those two things? So I urge you to think twice before saying that, oh, I'm not really criticizing the Jews. I'm just criticizing what I think is wrong. But to think what it would mean for someone to come in and say, you don't have a right to exist. This IRA statement is telling the world, it's making a statement to our community that Jews have a right to be here, Israel has a right to exist, and there's much more we can change and do in Israel to make things better, whether it's a two-state solution, whether it's working in community in both sides. It's not to say one side is all evil and the other side is all good. It's to say that we need to work better together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next,
Going to
Jamie.
Change her role to an attendee. Just one moment.
Okay.
The next person I'm going to bring over, I do have Susie Ross, but I'm saving her for visitor recognition. And then the next is Aaron Spring. Aaron, if you can turn your camera on, please, and microphone.
Hi, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Hello, Aaron.
Good evening. A few items I wanted to talk about on the agenda.
Aaron, I'm sorry. First, I know a lot of people know you.
Oh,
Name
sorry.
and
Aaron Spring Meadow Road. Sorry, Mayor Levin. Firstly, thank you, Trustee Fritchie. I really appreciated your leadership on this OSHA presentation and for continuing to watch out for our firefighters in the community. Thank you, Captain Donahue. I always love his reports, and I love his social media presence as well. He does a lot for this community, so I just wanted to say thank you while he's on the screen as well. And I do want to address this resolution. Firstly, as a Jewish resident, thank you for considering this resolution, and I hope that it passes. On October 7th, we had the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. But even before that, we have had instances of anti-Semitism within Ossining. I'll give you a few examples. One of my volunteers, when we were cleaning the streets, was the one that found the swastika that was at the Nelson Park playground, or the playground right behind Nelson Park. When I was a school board trustee, we had instances of swastikas being drawn in the classrooms and in the bathroom. So anti-Semitism was an issue in Ossining pre-October 7th. However, since October 7th, anti-Semitism has exacerbated in the United States. So I really appreciate the leadership of this village to consider something like this. And I also just wanted to clarify some things for the record. A few speakers talked about that this resolution is supported by a small minority of loud voices, quote unquote. And one speaker said that this is a definition that Republicans have been pushing. The reality is that the anti-Semitism bill that passed the United States House was passed 320 to 91, with support from people as progressive as Nancy Pelosi and people as conservative as Speaker Mike Johnson. This is a bipartisan definition. This is a definition that people have come together to adopt. And this is a way for Democrats and Republicans to come together to combat anti-Semitism. So again, as a Jewish resident, I really appreciate the fact that you guys are talking about this and bringing this up. One person brought up scripture. I'll bring up scripture too. Genesis 12, verse 3 says that those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed. So the reality is we're making all these assertions and we're making all these arguments, but we have to look hard at the facts. And the fact is that anti-Semitism is on the rise. And the fact that this is even being discussed is just, it's a great thing that it's being discussed, that we're trying to combat this. So I respect all the audience members in the room. I respect your opinion. I hope you can respect my opinion as well. We all have the right to free speech. And it is my hope that this resolution passes and that we can combat both anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and any other form of hatred that comes into our community. So thank you for your time. Em Yisrael Hai.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. I'm going to bring you back to being an attendee.
Is anyone there? Hello? Hello?
Hi, Melanie.
Hi.
You can speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I guess someone will tell me if they can't. Melanie Zamenhof of Ossining. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. I'm an Ossining resident, homeowner, mother of two. I'm the local parent connector for the River Towns. I'm a director of our local bar association, attorney at our local Ossining community law practice, and a certified mediator. And you have a long agenda tonight, and I want to be respectful of your time, but this is important. In short, I support the working definition from the IHRA. I do not think that it stifles political discourse. Criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic. And if you actually look at the definition from the IHRA, it specifically says, quote, however, criticism of Israel similar to that leveled against any other country cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. This is a bipartisan, widely recognized definition. I'd love for sentences to say it's to stop having a but on them. It's not anti-Semitic, but there's always a but. And this comes in the wake as well of a recent Board of Education complaint in Ossining for one of its board members and the content that we have yet to hear any resolution or feedback or even response to. This also comes in the recent wake of one of our local synagogues being vandalized. It's still being investigated by the Westchester County District Attorney as a hate crime for the intentional, premeditated trespass, destruction, vandalism, where our children play on that playground. I've spoken to many organizations about this. I'm the former director of Legal for Jewish Family Services. I strongly recommend the adoption of this working definition. It doesn't stifle political discourse. It doesn't allow you to not comment on Israel or its actions or the atrocities that are occurring. It's not anti-Semitism to criticize Israel, but it is anti-Semitism to support Hamas, which is a known, recognized terrorist organization that's sole creation is for the destruction of the Jewish people. It does prevent that, and the known, recognized terrorist organization Hamas is promoting violence. And so for those to speak, supporting them or their actions further encourages violence in our community. It's creating Jewish residents to pull their Shabbat candles back from the window. It's making many feel unsafe. And at 9:20 p.m. last night, because I'm a certified mediator, multiple mothers in the community summoned me into a local community chat to try to mediate the situation where people were, it's ongoing. I highly recommend this definition to support its residents. Thank you.
Thank you. You in there twice, so give me just 1 second. Okay, thank you for your patience. And I am now going to bring over Jermaine Smith. What I'm going to do is ask you to turn on your camera and your unmuting. Thank you. Jermaine, we brought you over. If you could unmute, please, and turn on your camera. Thank you.
There he is. Hi, Jermaine.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I'm Jermaine Smith, 77 Stone Avenue here in Ossining. I just appreciate the comments that everyone has said so far. Friend of a couple of people that spoke today, including Aaron Spring and a couple other people that spoke. While I have to be honest, don't know enough about the true definition that's being presented tonight. Or some of the opposition on both sides of this conversation, I do find it somewhat ironic that the village decides to put their finger on the scale of this conversation and try to, I guess, pretty hamper free speech and certain and certain facets of this conversation. Jennifer Carrera spoke earlier about the police reform conversation. I remember doing that when that was a mandated executive order issued by the governor when we were talking about specifically elements of policing and other things that affected the Black community. We were told that we have to, as a village, be the police department and be the village for everyone. And there was a lot of initiatives and a lot of incentives put in for the LGBT community, for the immigrant population, for the undocumented, just a lot of people within the community as well. When there was, to my personal opinion, nothing put in for specifically for the Black community, what the executive order was put in for. And we're in a society now where we're not teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's putting laws and things put in place where we can't actual teach history, and we're putting dampers and things on that. And then we're also deciding now to put our fingers on the scale on people opposing is whether or not it's Israel, Palestine, or whoever it is, and for the village to put policies in place that can somehow put any kind of claim on free speech is a little bit concerning to me. I do have to do a little bit more research and find out more about this definition, to be honest with you. But I also am curious about the other definitions that the village is putting in place for policies and for decisions that they're making. Are you doing anything for ageism and classism, ableism? How are we revisiting some of these other definitions that we're looking at? Are those definitions being applied to a lot of things that's going on for the Black community? We just got a letter today talking about the use of the N-word in the school again. That's been going on since I was in school, and there's a lot of limited scope on definitions that affect other communities. And I just find it ironic to me that there's a lot of support for one definition isolating one segment of the community. And when police reform was under conversation, we were told this is a village for everyone. And so I do have to do, again, full transparency, do a little bit more research about this. So I'll be reaching out to both segments of the community to try to really get an understanding. But I just wanted to voice my opinion and concern about some of what I'm seeing on the surface. So I thank you all. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Thank you. Jamie?
Anybody else?
Yes, there is just a moment.
Okay.
Next person I'm going to bring over is Leah Nelson. If you can please turn on your camera and unmute. Hi, Ms. Nelson, if you can please turn on your camera and unmute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Nelson. I am not a Ossining resident, but my church is part of the Ossining Briarcliff Ministerial Association. I volunteer in Ossining a lot. I also love Ossining. What else? I teach gardening at Claremont School in Ossining. I also believe that the Board of Trustees must oppose this resolution. I agree with Jermaine, and it's one of the first things that came to my mind is why is the village adopting a definition, a working definition of anti-Semitism when they haven't adopted a working definition of anti-Black racism or Islamophobia? It's kind of baffling to me why anti-Semitism gets this role. I also agree, I respectfully disagree with the rabbi who said that we can't call this what's going on in Gaza a genocide because the Israelis didn't start this war. Hamas did start the war, but the Palestinians are the ones that are being killed in grave numbers. And I also disagree with the fact that this definition is not censoring speech, because students are being taken to jail because of this resolution. Their belongings and cell phones are getting taken away at Purchase right here in Westchester just for protesting war. And I urge you to find a new definition that does not prescribe censorship, because that leads us straight to fascism and white supremacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie?
Going to change your role back to a.
I'm sorry, can't hear you.
Okay, so we don't have anybody else in the audience online for public comment on agenda items. We
Does
do have-
Susie want to speak on her topic, which was
Yes,
not?
but it's not on this. It's about visitor recognition. She gets 2 minutes, so we need
Okay.
the clerk to announce that.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to visitor recognition. Visitors will be accorded a 3-minute opportunity to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but of relevance to the common good of the village. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to talk about that? Seeing no one, how about online?
Yes, Susie, I'm going to be bringing you over. If you can turn on your camera and unmute. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, seeing you and hearing you. Hi, Susie.
Great.
Susie, I wanted to let you know you get 2 minutes.
We'll let you know when it's up.
Oh, okay. Not 3. I don't think I'm going to need 3, but
You only
You're
get 3.
fine.
okay. Okay.
Oh, no, you do get 3. I apologize. My fault. That kind of day.
Okay, it'll be
We're
somewhere
good.
between 2 and 3, maybe. Very difficult subject to follow. But I want to thank you all. Susie Ross, Sherwood Avenue, Ossining. I'm also the chair of Green Ossining. And tonight, my comments are really based on Sustainable Westchester's Westchester Power Community Choice Aggregation Program. And I just want to share some thoughts with you as I had at yesterday's town board meeting. The climate crisis is here. It's real, it's bad, and it's largely because of us and our use of extraction of fossil fuels. It was announced today that the Earth broke both a heat and a CO2 record once again. International climate officials warned today, as reported in the LA Times, that humanity is ignoring major planetary vital signs as atmospheric carbon dioxide levels soar to all-time highs and Earth records its 12th consecutive month of record-breaking heat. Now, whether I speak on behalf of Green Ossining or as an environmental advocate, I hear from people who feel overwhelmed and helpless about what they can do to make a positive impact and contribute to averting the worst of a climate crisis. And there are 2 main drivers of emissions that contribute to the climate crisis in our neck of the woods: transportation and buildings, including residential structures. And with regard to buildings and the subject at hand here, the most important thing we can do is to better insulate our buildings to reduce our need for energy, followed by heat pumps, geothermal air source, and next comes solar power. But many people in our community, for various valid reasons, do not have those choices available to them, and CCA allows people to have a role in doing the next best thing. Just a couple of last thoughts. Community choice aggregation has been only about 3 things, predominantly about 3 things: choice, capping cost, and support for renewable energy. In this wild time of transition, we may see the cost of this program be less, about the same, or even higher. So we may pay extra to do the right thing, but our residents can make a choice to opt out, and that needs to be made clearer. Otherwise, with uninformed and misinformed residents, the default will be to stick to fossil fuels, and that will be disastrous. My last thought is that last year, New York residents overwhelmingly supported an amendment to our Constitution that we have the right to clean air and clean water. And in combination with the state's 2019 climate law requiring emission reductions, municipalities have the chartered responsibility to lead their residents to cleaner solutions. We have an obligation to better educate them on the importance of this program, and we owe it to ourselves and to a future we all want to leave behind that we make bold decisions in this very important time of a necessary to survival transition to a renewable energy economy. And I thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Susie. I just wanted to, again, put some context. We were one of the first in the consortium. Susie will correct me if I'm wrong. Manny and I were both trustees at the time for consortium to go green, to buy green versus fossil on behalf of the community. The reason she's speaking today a little bit out of turn, normally you get this at the legislative sessions when it's on the agenda, is there's a little bit of an issue with the contract that we have to decide on. And I believe it is on the 12th that we will be hearing from Sustainable Westchester. The deputy mayor, myself, village manager, Stuart Kahan, and a team from Sustainable Westchester met with us. I'm sorry, Stuart, you looked at the contract. You weren't at the meeting, but the rest of us were there and met about the contract that is due specific to Ossining, because our responsibilities are to Ossining. And specific to that, what our role and whether we will re-up the contract or not. There have been a lot of changes during the meeting. There were also some nuances that were described to us when we walked out. We felt a lot better than when we walked in. And so Susie's speaking just a little bit out of turn, so people don't call in and say, why does she get to do that? But I don't. It's because there just won't be time, given when we have to do the contract. And she was available today, and she's very knowledgeable about Sustainable Westchester. So I appreciate your comments, Susie, tonight during this session. So I just want to put some context to it. Okay. Thank you. Is that it for people speak? Okay.
Thank you.
That's it?
Right.
Okay. So I normally speak last. It's a tradition. There's no law about who speaks, and if anybody speaks, none of us have to speak, actually. There are very interesting rules about how government is run locally. But I am going to go to the trustees first. I usually wrap up, put things in context last, for those of you that follow us. So, Deputy Mayor, do you want to say a few words about the topic that were discussed?
Mayor, just to point out, we're going to be able to do that when we call the resolution.
Do you want to do it at the resolution? Okay, we'll do it then. Okay,
Okay.
got it.
Okay, Village Board Resolutions, approval of minutes, May 15th, 2024. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of May 15th, 2024, regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Sue?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I apologize. Approval of minutes, May 22nd, 2024, special meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the May 22nd, 2024 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions,
I just have one comment.
please?
Is Jamie, if you could go to the links, are not working right now, both of them.
See, that's what's happened to me before.
So if we can just fix that.
Links?
Right.
He's asking which links.
Oh, both of them.
Okay.
Either the PDF or the web browser.
I'll speak
For
with
both,
Deputy Clerk
for
about
both,
it
yeah.
tomorrow.
For
and
A
see.
and B.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to add always.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I
No,
just
she's
the
gonna,
Deputy Clerk.
they're gonna look at it tomorrow.
Okay,
If I can.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of a voucher detail report, June 5th, 2024. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated June 5th, 2024 in the amount of $1,572,236.86. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second, questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna take advantage that Dell is here with us in person.
Yeah, I was
So,
wondering, actually.
I just, could you give me a clarification on the capital projects portion of that, the $953,000? Please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Trustee Casada, we purchased two sanitation trucks actually 2 years ago, and they have finally arrived. So that was $600,000 of that 900. The six-wheel dump truck also has now arrived.
How many years ago did we order that?
That one was slightly shorter, maybe a year and a half. And then the utility truck has also all arrived in the same time frame. So that was only 4 months. So we're finally catching up a little bit on our purchases.
Thank you. I was just curious about the capital process. That's all, because I didn't get that email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And due to the length of the agenda this evening, Corporation Counsel will be taking over for D, E, F, G, and H.
We'll start with D and then there'll be comments. Go ahead.
Right.
Here we go. Resolution D, adoption of the working definition of anti-Semitism. Whereas anti-Semitism, including harassment on the basis of actual or perceived Jewish origin, ancestry, ethnicity, affiliation, or faith, remains a persistent, pervasive, and disturbing problem in American society. And whereas, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigation data, Jews are consistently the most likely of all religious groups to be victimized by incidents of hate in the United States, and such incidents are increasing at an alarming rate. And whereas an April 16, 2024 report from CNN noted the Anti-Defamation League tracked 8,873 anti-Semitic incidents in the United States in 2023, the highest number of incidents reported since the organization began tracking data in 1979. Last year, the number of anti-Semitic incidents outpaced the all-time high set in 2022 by 140%. The more than 8,800 incidents of anti-Semitism tracked by the group included harassment, vandalism, and assault, is a dramatic increase from the nearly 3,700 cases reported in 2022. And whereas municipal officials and institutions have a responsibility to protect citizens from acts of hate and bigotry, including anti-Semitism, and must adopt the tools to do so. And whereas valid monitoring, informed analysis and investigation, and effective policymaking all benefit from accurate and uniform definitions. And whereas in May 2016, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA, by consensus vote of its member states, adopted the working definition of anti-Semitism. And whereas the IRA definition states, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. And whereas the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism has become the internationally recognized authoritative definition of anti-Semitism for use by governments and international organizations. And whereas the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism has proven to be an essential tool to determine contemporary manifestations of anti-Semitism. And whereas the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism used by agencies of the United States government, including the Department of State and Department of Education, and has been adopted or endorsed by more than 1,178 entities across the world, including by 41 countries, over 485 municipalities and regional governments, and over 346 educational institutions and 306 other organizations. And whereas in the United States, our working definition of anti-Semitism utilized by various government and law enforcement agencies, monitoring, training, and education, as has been adopted by 31 states and more than 69 counties and cities. And whereas the Village of Ossining values religious diversity and interfaith tolerance, and where the Jewish community is an inseparable part of the village's social fabric, culture, and heritage. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees adopts the non-legally binding IRA working definition of anti-Semitism as an important tool to address anti-Semitism. And be it further resolved that all village departments, boards, and commissions shall ensure that the copies of the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism are available as an educational resource for those departments, boards, and commissions responsible for addressing anti-Semitism and all other forms of discrimination. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Comments from the board?
I'll begin. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I want to start by thanking everyone who came in person or who logged in online to speak and share their thoughts about tonight's resolution. I'm someone that received a lot of your comments and really took them to heart. And I want to be very specific. So on Friday, when our agenda was posted, and I saw that the working definition of anti-Semitism was on the agenda, I took the time to read it in detail. And there were two components to it. There was the definition itself, which the Corporation Council just read. And then there are 11 examples of anti-Semitism. And the guidelines of the 11 examples, some of them are pretty straightforward and non-controversial. And then some of them are more controversial, as some of the folks here have mentioned, that they are potentially problematic because they can conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. And so I looked back, and the town of Ossining on May 14th, today is June 5th, on May 14th, they passed this working definition of anti-Semitism in this very room. To no comments, which I found surprising. But more than that, it's that their resolution has the definition, and if you read both the whereases and then the therefore, they say, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby adopts the non-binding IRA working definition of anti-Semitism, including the 11 contemporary examples stated therein. So I said, hey, all right, let me take a look at what the language actually says. The language here, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. There's nothing there that I found particularly controversial or problematic. The definition I thought was fine. It was the examples, the guidelines that I said, well, there's room for interpretation here that could be potentially problematic. And so I thought, hey, what if we move forward with this definition, which I think is fine, but then not do what the town did and also adopt the 11 examples, let's cut that part out and just say, here's the definition. And why is this definition, to me, helpful and important? It is because when you look at other definitions, the Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism or the Nexus document or others, which are fine definitions in and of themselves, one of the aspects that this definition has that those don't is that it talks about non-Jews as well. So it's anti-Semitism directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals. Why does that matter? That matters because if someone commits an act of perceived anti-Semitic, they think someone is Jewish and that's why they hurt them or their property or something like that. That is also anti-Semitism, even if that person isn't Jewish. And that to me is an important distinction. That was a point of education for me. I didn't know about that. Those other definitions don't include that piece. And so I don't have any particular problem with adopting another definition, but I thought this was helpful for that reason. So I said, if we have this definition and exclude the guidelines, recognizing that this is non-binding, non-legal, in the sense that we have a First Amendment right in this country to say whatever it is that you want, except what the Supreme Court says that you can't, with fire in a movie theater and so forth. You can say all the things that you want to say, and I think you should. For that reason, you're not hearing my thoughts about, like, what do you think about this particular political issue? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think. What I think is, as in the seat that I'm in, I'm sitting in a seat where on Saturday, I was in Market Square and we raised the flag for Juneteenth because there are community members in Ossining, both Black and allies, that said it's important to recognize our Black community. Today, we raised the pride flag because the LGBTQ community said it's important for us and allies to recognize this community. And tonight, the Jewish community came to us and said, hey, it's important to recognize our community. Cool. As a trustee, I have all the ability in the world to support something like this, anti-Semitism. As long as this is what this is, not what the town did necessarily, but what this is. Because to me, it is consistent with what I value and my position as a trustee of being able to support all the communities. And so if, for example, Muslim group came to us and said, hey, we have a definition of Islamophobia we'd like you to adopt, my ears are open as well. This is not exclusive to any other group. It is what it is. And that is why I am in support of it.
Dana, any comments? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Dana? I admit that before I saw the agenda, I wasn't familiar with this document. I think it's an imperfect document. When I read it, I'm a journalist. I read the definition, okay, and then I read the examples. And as somebody whose job is to read and discern meaning from words, I immediately felt it was a bit out of line. I thought it was controlling too much what people think and say. I prize freedom of speech above everything. Now, that's my interpretation. You may disagree. I, too, supported removing all references to the guidelines. To me, they were the problematic aspect of it. Now, whether this group was the best group to be doing this, the fact, now, as a journalist, I personally, if I were going to start over on this, I would look at everything that's available. But the only way to do that is to start over and table this, which I'm not entirely against. And I'm really torn. I'm married to a Jewish man. My sons are Jewish. I abhor anti-Semitism. I abhor hate in all its forms, whoever it's directed at. But I also value a thorough investigation and research of options before one is chosen. Now, I realize this seems to be the definition du jour. I don't know how that happened. The fact that Donald Trump signed it as an executive order immediately made me suspicious. I don't like agreeing with him. President Bush did codify anti-Semitism language. I did not realize it was different. And they have a very long report. I felt better that it was different. We are a progressive village. And we need to be progressive in all ways.
I don't think there's a progressive document. And I, when those guidelines were removed, I thought, okay, I guess I can accept it now, but I'm just not sure. I'm really not, and I'm not prepared to vote on it tonight.
Gentlemen?
Thank you, Mayor.
Are you on?
Hope on.
Oh,
hope I
there it
am
goes.
now. So I just, first of all, I just want to say thank you for everybody that came out here. One of the difficult parts that we always said is, like, sometimes we talk to ourselves. So it's nice to see, in whichever way you want to take it, having public here, not just present, but also in Zoom. One of the things that I think we all have different strengths on this board, and to research that we do, this was definitely not one of my strengths. So I needed to educate myself a little bit more into what this actually means, into what this actually is going to be doing for us. To me, I'm going to take it. I agree with you, Omar, 100%. I couldn't say anything better than or additional to what you just said. But I think my 2 cents on this is education. Education is a big tool in this country and this time of world right now, no matter what it is. Almost, I think, like 31 years ago, I came to this country, and I was one of the minorities at that point. I still feel that way. Some people make fun of my accent sometimes. It's like, it is what it is. But that, I don't know the history enough throughout the world. Every race has a difficult part and has been in situations where someone was we are now. Looking at this definition and look at what it was edited from Friday to now, I'm in full support of it. It's a part of education that we have to learn as a community. Not too long ago, and I cannot remember what year, we actually we did pass a resolution about hate.
Well, the hate crimes are actual crimes in New
So
York, right?
we have done things of that nature. We've been supportive of a lot of stuff that sometimes it has weight into the state or the country as a symbolism. And I think this is a very valuable piece for our community to set an example of what we are and what the values we have here in the village of Austin. So,
Bob, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just real quick. Again, thank you everybody for coming. As Trustee Casada said, it's nice to see people in the room that are concerned citizens. I am totally aligned with Deputy Mayor as far as what he spoke on. I couldn't have said it any better. So I am in favor of this. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I don't like to repeat what people say. So I'll add and do the additives part. Thank you for all. For me, this was also a learning experience. We did make some changes. The town did approve it already. The county has approved it. The state, the governor, both houses, the president, etc. For the most part, if there's some changes, I don't really think that this group can start changing all the words. I'm not even sure where we would start. I'm not sure it's necessary. Years were spent on this. While an author keeps being described and quoted, the truth is an author working at a think tank did not do this by himself. And his opinions, while interesting, is not actually the sum total of the years that were spent on editing the document. So I want to make some clarifications that this is a product of a lot of people, a number of years. And all of the stuff that is going on in another country is not within the control or the purview of the 5 people sitting here. We get elected by the people who vote in Ossining, as does the town. And that is where we look at it. And for me, the increase in anti-Semitism in Ossining, three-digit growth from year to year for the past 3 to 4 years, with the swastikas, the lack of education about anti-Semitism, was a request to say, look, definitions help people see. It doesn't allow, as somebody mentioned, the police to take this document and do anything with it. It doesn't offer policy. It is not a piece of legislation. It is a non-binding. It is definition with examples. And the examples became problematic. I read them very differently than other people did, and some people didn't read them at all in the same way. We're 5 people we all have opinions. You may not see it tonight, but we all have very strong opinions about many different topics. I look at this room and think, as I did in the beginning of this meeting, I love living here because I happen to really enjoy this job because of the education part. And while people are very emotional about any war, it really doesn't matter. This war is important to X number of people. There are other wars going on. There are deaths, there are rapes, there's stuff happening all over the world that are important to those people. Things happen in Mexico over this week. They're important to those people. I don't know much about it, but I'm sure that the Mexican American community is very concerned. And when you live, as somebody said to me earlier, when you live in such a highly diverse and involved community, you have many strong opinions. And that's what we saw tonight. At the end of all this, I think the deputy mayor did summarize it, that this piece that we are approving as the village, because of the rise of anti-Semitism in the village of Ossining as part of the town and as part of the county and the state of New York and in this country, has very little to do with Israel and the connections to all of that. It has everything to do with how Jews in this area are being treated and the understanding of that. And as the deputy mayor said, and we've said this before, this is not a hate crime issue. Hate crimes are already illegal. They have clear definitions that the police follow. Nothing to do with this at all. Those have already been passed. Nooses, swastikas, and I forgot the third thing, which I should know, but there's a third piece to it, all already passed. Things about the gay community, the Black community, there are laws in place. They're all different and they're all different parts of government. In the village, the reason we're doing this, because we have actually an issue that we are dealing with. That's actually why we sit in these chairs. We all live here. We all see it. Some of us have kids in the school. All the rest of the stuff about what goes on in northern country are interesting, and the universities in the city or in other municipalities, interesting for those people. Our role is the village, and so I'm putting some context on it, not to dilute what was said to my right and to my left, but as an additive and for context. I'm in support of this, and we're in the middle of a vote, correct? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
No. Oh, his?
Resolution E.
Sorry.
Call for public hearing, proposed local law 2024 titled a local law repealing chapter 162, article 6, housing, property maintenance and building code administration, chapter 95, buildings and structures unsafe and demolition of, and adding a new chapter 92, building construction and fire prevention code administration and enforcement to the village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the village of Ossining public hearing take place at 7:30 p.m. on June 18, 2024 at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 86-88 Spring Street, Ossining, New York. Consider proposed local law 2024 titled a local law repealing chapter 162.6, housing, property maintenance and building code administration, chapter 95, buildings and structures unsafe demolition of, and adding a new chapter 92, building construction and fire prevention code administration and to the village of Ossining Code. It further resolved that the proposed local law repeals certain provisions of the village code and adopts with modifications New York State Model Code relating to enforcement and administration. Further resolved that members of the public are invited to attend the public hearing in person at the above referenced location, and be it further resolved that those members of the public requiring a reasonable accommodation participate in the public hearing to that person's disability shall notify the Corporation Council no later than 7 days before the public hearing to afford the village sufficient time to provide the reasonable accommodation. Further resolved that for those members of the public who want to attend, participate in the public hearing remotely, access will be available via the Zoom platform. And be it further resolved, comments regarding the proposed local law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees at BOT at Village of Ossining. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution F, call for public hearing, proposed local law 2024, titled a local law adding chapter 205, rental registry to the village of Ossining. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing, place at 7:30 p.m. on June 18, 2024, at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York. Local law 24 titled The Local Law Adding Chapter 205 Rental Registry to the Ossining Code, it further resolved that the proposed local law adds Chapter 205, establishing a rental registry for all 1- and 2-family private dwellings that are rented or leased in the village of Ossining. And be it further resolved that members of the public are invited to attend the public hearing in person at the above referenced location. And be it further resolved that those members of the public requiring a reasonable accommodation to participate in the public hearing due to that person's disability shall notify the Corporation Council no later than 7 days before the public hearing to afford the village sufficient time to provide the reasonable accommodation. And be it further resolved that for those members of the public who want to attend, participate in the public hearing remotely, access will be available via the Zoom platform. And be it further resolved that comments regarding the proposed local law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees. Do I have a motion?
Second?
Any questions?
Yes.
Sure.
We looked at this about 3 weeks ago in a work session, and there were some pending items that was sent out by email. I would like to ask the board to hold off this, to have a working session again, to go back into the additional information that was provided to us, have a discussion, and if anything, kind of bring this back into public hearing portion. I don't feel comfortable right now moving forward with this.
What are they? Something.
There was 2 clarifications on that one. I believe one of them was in regards to the owner's residency, if it was a 2-family, if it was.
Isn't that in there?
It's made clear that it is the leased or rented portion of the 1 or 2 family.
Correct. And again, so there was an email sent out, but there was really no discussion on the board in regards to if we all agree with that or don't agree with that. Unless I missed that whole conversation, I would like to ask the board to table this, go back to working session, and then come back into this, if anything.
So my recollection's a little different, that we all actually, I mean, we didn't vote. We all sat there going, yeah, that makes sense, because you brought it up and said you can look at the leased or the rented section, not where the residence is. Is there a time element to revisiting this at a work session that we need to meet, right, for more work?
No, one, beside more work, and 2, the changes were made that the board had requested. But if you want to,
because that's actually what you don't think
now
we
you're
agreed
looking
to?
just for a schedule, Mayor. You're probably not looking till July with work sessions.
That's why I'm asking.
So I mean, it's just
Is this? Sorry, go ahead.
no, only just to, we.
Yeah. We're talking
whenever
about
you
July.
It's your pleasure.
Right. So
If the board, so let me go back a little bit. So if the rest of the board had the chance to actually read that email that was sent out and agrees to that, of course, they have the majority on the floor that they can discuss this and move forward with that. Me personally, I don't agree with that. We haven't had. No, I did, but it wasn't a discussion throughout the board. So now if the board read the email, the rest of the board read the email, and they're okay with that, they want to move forward with this, they can obviously do that.
So if you don't have a problem with it, I think we can go forward, because I'll tell you, I thought that we sort of did agree. We didn't sit there and have a conversation, but I thought that what we asked for actually is what we got. That's my point. We asked for, I think you brought up, well, which unit, both units, and Stuart said, well, I'll change it to make it just the unit that is rented. So we got back what we asked for. I don't always find it necessary to then go back for a conversation. But you have a problem with that decision because maybe there wasn't enough conversation. I don't know if you guys want to have a conversation about it, or are you opposed to that, the way it's
I
written?
just want to make sure that they actually read the email that was sent out by Stuart last week. And actually agree with, because again, I'm just trying to look at the email that you sent out, Stuart. Because there was two clarifications on that one, correct? There was one
that there was also the
years. You're talking about the years.
Well, we also included, the mayor wanted something with regard to what happens if the owner does not put in rental information.
Right.
So we are now using the small area fair market rent for Westchester County. Actually, for us, that's published by Housing and Urban Development, 110% of that. At the manager's suggestion, the effective date put off for 90 days following filing to give more time to the building department to sort of ramp up for this. And the main thing in terms of what the trustee Quezada asked was that it was very clear that deals with 1 and 2 family private dwellings, the portion of the dwelling that is rented or leased.
Right.
Which I guess what I'm saying is, Manny, we asked for that based on conversation, like originally it was 2 years, they went 3 years. So I feel like they gave us back exactly what we asked for. I did read the email to answer the question. So question is, if you disagree, there's a reason for conversation. If nobody disagrees, I don't know
But
why
that's
we would need
yeah,
to have more
exactly. That's what I'm
conversation.
asking. That's what
Does
I'm asking the
anybody
rest of the
disagree
board.
with
If
the way
they
this
they're
is
okay
written?
with that email
You're
that I
good?
was sent out, then
You're okay? I read it. I'm okay. But we asked. You're okay. You
no. I'm okay with the concept of having that discussion, but if everybody else agrees with it, I prefer having a discussion in a work session. But if everybody else is okay with that, then
I
we
understand
move
that,
forward
but
with
do
it.
you agree, out of discussion, do you agree, right now, do you agree with what he came back with, or your disagreement, which is,
No, I think is helpful to see that, I do have concerns with this portion of the legislation itself, like the whole process itself. The reason I'm saying that is not just this, which I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to actually change it to 90 days. I'm happy to see this 3 years instead
Okay.
of 2
I
years.
think you asked.
No, it was just matter of like, figuring out the fire inspections. I think one of the biggest concerns that I have, and I brought this up last time, it was two things. Sure. We have passed legislation in regards to all the issues that sort of address this, which I haven't seen any feedback.
I see.
The other portion of that is I have spoken to all the building departments throughout Westchester just to get the feedback on what they see, if that will be possible or not, including some of the departments that have this on their books. And they said it doesn't work, not
Okay.
going to work. And it has different layers of that. It's because how much more sometimes departments, they struggle to get the fire inspections done. Now we adding another layer to this. It's not going to cost only taxpayers money, but my concern at the end of the day, as a trustee, a sitting trustee right now, is that in a few years, or a year from now, is they're going to come back and they say, look, if you want us to complete this task, we're going to need an additional code enforcement or an assistant building inspector and somebody else in staff to administrate of all this portion. So my concern is not just this, it's actually what's going to happen next 2 years. So in reality, concept, I agree with it.
Okay.
We know there's a problem. And reality is we're going to be costing more money to the taxpayers by adding this, even though we have other laws that we have put in place that we're not utilizing to get this.
So I think you mentioned some of that. So let me suggest the following. Okay. Going back to a work session to have more discussion isn't going to solve for what you're looking for. It isn't. It'll just be more conversation. Why? Because we don't know. We have a staff that says we can do this and we can do it in a timely manner. We moved it from 2 years to 3 years because we sort of had a feeling that doing it every 2 years might be too much. Let's try for 3. My guess is that if this can't be done, there will be only 2 things to be done. We will be asked for more staff, and whoever sits on the board is going to say yes or no. If you don't get more staff, then don't do this because you can't. Or they're going to say, yes, you can have more staff and it will cost the taxpayer more because it's worth it. Those really are the 2 ways it's going to go. But we won't get there unless we say we want to do it. Saying we want to talk about it more and understand it more. I don't think the village manager will know any more in 2 weeks about what the staffing looks like than she's going to know. The question you might say is, can we do one more thing based on what we're doing today? Like we're already at capacity. Can we? That's a different question that the staff has to answer. If they said, yes, trust us, we can. The only thing that's going to happen is at some point, they're either going to come through or they're not going to come through. And if they don't come through, a board is going to say, you can't do this. So eliminate this and we change this, or we change something else that we no longer need. That's frankly, but having this at another work session, I'm not going to know any more in 2 weeks about capacity planning than I know today. I'm just not. And saying that they're not getting what they already should be getting done is also not going to help by having conversation 2 weeks. I think that everything we discussed, that we said to them, let's do this, and the 3 years versus 2, the putting the certificates so people see it, so the neighborhood can see it, so neighbors see who's renting, publicizing it, so neighbors in the neighborhood become more involved. Go, what the hell? What are these people doing? When did they start renting all this stuff out? I think there's advantages beyond what the building department inspectors can or can't do. But I don't think we're going to get there until we say, yes, we're doing it. And we have to get back to it in 2 years and say, yep, you guys, or 3 years, you guys can't do it. And we're not giving you more staff. So I guess we're not going to be, I don't know how else to get there, because talking about it, I'm not going to, what are you going to know?
You're 100%. Please move forward with the
I'm
board.
feeling a little sarcasm, but I'm
I-
trying to be
I-
helpful. I just don't know what we're gonna learn, and you're not wrong, and we'll see in 3 years whether you were right and the staff was wrong that they can't handle some legislation that we're passing. Not a comment on their abilities, it just might be that we hit a wall. And maybe the DRI things take over and they can't do it. I don't know what's gonna happen. But if we want to do this, at some point, we have to pull a trigger. So I think, I do think that we're moving forward because we got what we asked. Get what we asked for, what was suggested. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Are you reading the next one too?
Yes,
Okay.
and the one after that.
Oh, okay.
Resolution G, adoption of local law 6-2024, a local law amending chapter 147, food establishments. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining has been considering the adoption of proposed local law 2024 titled the local law amending chapter 147, food establishments of the Village of Ossining Code. And whereas a public hearing was conducted on May 15, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. at the Birdsall Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, and via the Zoom platform, affording members of the public an opportunity to be heard. And whereas the public hearing was closed on May 15, 2024, and whereas there are no impediments to approving the proposed local law, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby adopts as local law 6-2024, a local law amending chapter 147 food establishments of the Village of Ossining Code, and directs that the said local law be filed and or distributed in accord with the applicable law, and be it further resolved that local law 6-2024 shall become effective upon filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to the Municipal Home Rule Law. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Who moved?
Bob.
Got it. This is a
Sorry.
roll call vote, if I may. Trustee Fritchie,
Aye.
Trustee White,
Aye.
Trustee Cazada,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Lopez,
Aye.
Mayor Levin.
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution H, referral of proposed zoning text amendments to the Planning Board. Whereas that pursuant to section 270-59 of the Village of Ossining Code, this chapter or any part thereof may be amended, supplemented, or repealed from time to time by the village board on its own motion or upon recommendation by the planning board. Prior to the public hearing, every proposed amendment shall be referred by the village board to the planning board for a report which shall be rendered within 62 days of such referral. And whereas the Board of Trustees is considering an amendment to chapter 270 zoning, we had a new article titled Indian Brook Croton Gorge Intermunicipal Watershed Protection Overlay District. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 270-59 of the Village of Ossining Code, the Board of Trustees refers the proposed zoning text amendment to the Planning Board, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board shall issue its report on the proposed zoning text amendment to the zoning code within 62 days of this referral. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I will return it now to.
Authorizing the Finance Department to impose a $5 per unit administrative fee for those residential units covered by the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. Whereas on May 25th, 2024, correspondence was sent to the village treasurer from the New York State Homes and Community Renewal, HCR, which corresponds included the invoice for $8,880 based on a charge of $20 per unit for 444 eligible units in 7 buildings for fiscal year 2023, 2024, and whereas the village may assess a surcharge of its administrative costs in connection with the ETPA program. Now therefore be it resolved that the treasurer is authorized to assess a $5 per unit surcharge for each of the 444 eligible ETPA units, and be it further resolved that the treasurer shall have the finance department send out notices to the buildings of the 444 eligible units apprising the owners of the $5 surcharge, and that payment must be made to the Village of Ossining Finance Department by December 1st, 2024, and be further resolved that upon failure of these owners to make the required surcharge payment by December 1st, 2024, the village treasurer shall certify the amounts due for those amounts become liens upon the property and shall be added and become part of the taxes next to be assessed and levied on such property and to be collected, enforced in the same manner as taxes. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Any questions?
Second.
All in favor?
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Stuart, my memory, is it always been since 2019, 444 units?
No, actually, that number is a little bit lower because we last year had 4 different buildings that entered into the opt-out agreements. So it was actually over 1,000 units.
For 1,000.
And that has now dropped down, and this now reflects the lower number.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, authorizing agreement for structural engineer consulting services. Resolved that the village manager is authorized to sign agreements with the following engineering firms to provide structural engineering consulting services on the as needed basis. CPL Architects, Engineers and Landscape Architects, DPC. Grossfield Marcy Macri Consulting Engineers, PC. Collier. Yeah, it's Colliers, thank you. Engineering and Design, Architectural, Landscape Architectural Surveying, CTPC. MG McLaren, Engineering and Land Surveying, PC. And Tectonic Engineering Consultants, Geologists and Land Surveys, DPC. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second. Comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have a question, please.
Oh.
I need to take a 2-3 minute break. I don't have a problem with just me doing it so we can continue with the meeting or just taking a break, but I need to take a break. You guys want to continue? Without me? Okay. I'm good with it.
Okay,
No issue.
Okay,
I'll give you a holler. Yep.
we'll continue. Okay.
Please.
Finance established the 2024 Police Tactical Team Capital Project from federal grant funding. Whereas the village manager wishes to establish a capital project in accordance with the police technical term federal grant awarded of $75,000, and there's a 0 missing there. For equipment purchases, now therefore be it resolved that the capital project and the capital project budgets are established as follows, and it is posted on the clerk's bulletin board, different things. Do I have a motion for the amended resolution?
Moved.
I'm sorry,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Finance establishment of the 2024 Police Critical Infrastructure Capital Project from the federal grant funding. Whereas the village management wishes to establish a capital project in accordance with the Police Critical Infrastructure Federal Grant awarded of $50,000 for equipment purchase. Now therefore be it resolved that the capital project and the capital project budgets are established as follows. Again, it's on the bulletin board of the clerk's office. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Finance, establishment of the 2024 Police New York State DCJS Law Enforcement Technology Capital Project from state grant funding. Whereas the village management wishes to establish a capital project in accordance with the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services Law Enforcement Technology Grant awarded of $150,000 for license plate readers. Now therefore be it resolved that the capital project and the capital project budgets are established as follows. Again, it is on the bulletin board of the clerk's office. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Local physical recovery funds from the New York Department of Treasury, ARPA. Whereas the United States Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, ARPA, which legislation was subsequently signed by President Biden. And whereas the village will receive $2,544,812.87 in ARPA funding, and whereas the Treasury Department issued guidance on how the non-entitlement units can utilize the funding, with funds to be obligated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby obligates the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, and the New York, and
from the United States Department of Treasury for a total of $2,544,812.87 for the purpose of the water treatment facility, more specifically, the Indian Brook Water Treatment Facility project. Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Benny.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Finance, budget modification, Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant capital project. Whereas the village has been awarded the grants of $10 million from New York State Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund, $5 million from New York State Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, WIIA, and then from New York State in the amount of $160,000 from the Green Innovation Grant Program, GIGP, through the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, EFC, designated to help pay for components of a green roof for the proposed new water treatment plant, which will be part of the revised estimate and the project budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the project budget for the new Indian Brook water treatment plant facility is modified to reflect the adjusted capital project. Again, all the adjustments, bulletin board, and I want to point out that all of these are also on the webpage as far as the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Paper is so thick. Finance, adjust and close 2020 parking study capital project, whereas the village management wishes to adjust the revenue and expense budgets of the actual project costs of $119,444 for the 2020 parking study capital project 2239 and close the capital project funded from the general fund transfer of $60,000 and estate grant funds of $59,722. Now therefore be it resolved that the capital project and the capital project budget are adjusted as follows. Again, posted on the clerk's bulletin board and on the webpage. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Finance, adjust and close 2021 Nelson Tree Planting Capital Project, whereas the village management wishes to adjust the revenue and expense budgets of the actual project cost of $35,665.70 for the 2021 Nelson Park Tree Planting Project for 2247 and close the capital project funded by the state grant funds of $35,665.70. Now therefore be it resolved that the capital project and the capital project are adjusted as follows. And again, posted on the bulletin board and on the webpage. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Who was, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Manny was second.
Manny was second. Okay, Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Finance. Adjust and close the 2018 200 Main Street Capital Project, whereas the village management wishes to adjust the revenue and expense budgets of the actual project costs and revenue received of $455,130.88 for the 2018 200 Main Street Capital Project 2201 and close the capital project funded from a general fund transfer of $180,774 and state grants of $274,356.88. Now therefore be it resolved that the capital project and the capital project budgets are adjusted as follows. Again, the chart is on the webpage and also on the clerk's bulletin board. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second. Questions, comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Finance Department. Resolution to close completed capital projects in 2024, 6/5/2024. Resolved that the capital projects are hereby declared closed and residual equity balances transferred to the appropriate based on the original project funding source. And the respective project budgets modified to reflect the residual equity transfers as follows. And again, the very long chart is on the bulletin board and also on the webpage. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments?
Do have a question.
Oh.
Bill?
Don't want her to upset her.
2196 planning for the comp plan.
There was a balance left from the project when it is completed. And that balance is going to get returned to the general fund
Okay.
for that portion that was funded.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
Why now? Why not last year?
I think last year we may have closed a few projects, but I didn't do a full analysis like I have done. So this is all inclusive.
Okay.
To do a major cleanup, especially as we're moving forward with adding a lot of new projects on, it will reduce our capital project schedule.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Resolution T, Appointment Landlord-Tenant Relations Council. Resolved that the Board of Trustees appoints Alexander Zamenhof to the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council, neither landlord nor tenant category, to complete a term expiring on December 31, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Any questions? Annie, any comments? Are you excited?
It was, you know what? I know I missed an event last week, but I don't regret have that opportunity to have a few minutes with him, and I'm really excited.
Good. It's very hard to find a
Yeah.
neither, as we call it, and it's such an important committee. Not that they're not all important, but these guys really affect people's lives.
Yeah, no,
Like in
and
real
it's,
terms, in real time, and it's real work. So great. I'm glad this
yeah, no,
happened.
I'm sure Stuart. I'm not sure, Stuart. Did you get a chance to talk to him at all?
I didn't, but I know he was at tonight's meeting
Yeah.
because we arranged that he would,
Yeah.
he
Great.
was sent a link and he was on the meeting
Yeah.
tonight.
Did you see his resume too?
Yes.
It was very impressive. I mean,
Good.
he's a mediator.
Yep.
He's like,
Yeah.
it's I think 99% of the stuff that we sort of
Great.
we publish out. But yeah, I'm excited. So
Good.
yes,
I'm
definitely.
happy that you guys were
Yep.
able to do that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Fire Department appointment, Ossining Hose Company Number 1, resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Michael Aurora, Ossining, New York, was elected as an active member of Ossining Hose Company Number 1 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution V, Fire Department appointment, Ossining Hose Company Number 1, resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Christopher Piacentile, Ossining, New York, was elected as an active member of Ossining Hose Company Number 1 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any continuing business of the board?
Nope.
I do.
Oh, you have.
I
I'm
want to
sorry.
bring something up. I'm not sure if it's I guess it could
Continuing
be
or new?
Continuous and new. A little bit of both, I'm assuming. Because a couple of months back, we had a discussion in regards to clothing drop-off areas. Stuart, remember that? We had
Which drop?
the clothes, people dropping off
Yes,
clothes.
yes,
and
right,
So my question is, because I drove around again the village over the
Oh.
weekend,
Know what you
and
meant.
one of them was removed, obviously, the one that we got a bunch of emails, which is the one in CVS, but the rest of them still there in place. And I believe my recollection, and please the board and the store and anybody else can correct me, but I believe we said that we didn't want those village, and we were going to be waiting for
Where
Stuart
did you
to
see
come
them in the
back.
village? The one in,
We have one in
There's one in
Arcadia.
the
We have one in
Oh,
the
I thought
gas-
they
we have
removed it. I guess
one
not.
in a gas station.
My
couple
memory-
gas stations. Well,
My memory of the conversation was that if they were kept looking aesthetically pleasing, like if they were neat and clean and like not overflowing and so forth, that they would be left. Because that one of the conversations about this is a while ago, but it was like, hey, here's this one, like it's fine, like it and not just fine now, but like all the time people will donate clothes or whatever, but it's not like overflowing or dirty or how do those have to be removed? And I think the compromise that I remember was for those that are historically a problem, they have to just be removed. And if any become a problem, they also need to be removed. But if they're not a problem, they can be left. Like the one in
That's
Arcadia,
what
for
I-
example?
Okay, so I actually
my
don't,
recollection was
I
that-
don't, yeah, mine is actually also different. You take notes at these meetings, right, the work sessions? Can you just go back and see where we landed?
and one
I'm
of-
having a different, I actually feel like we said we're gonna get rid of all of
And
them, to
Mayor,
be
one of the
honest.
issues that did come up
Okay,
was that there are the boxes at WFD headquarters.
Mhm.
Or Duzio about that, because those are actually, it's a private company that actually has the boxes there. And the chief, what? I'm
They
sorry.
all are, I
Okay,
think.
but what the chief basically said is that if we were to do a blanket ban, he would simply tell the company to take the boxes away.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's it. So
that's
it
what
would
he's
not,
saying, though. Can you look at your notes and say, they're all private, all these things that say,
Right.
none of them are, really, none of them are charities.
No.
Used to be, but they're not. They say on these things, but they're not charities. So that means they're private.
my recollection, Mayor, and I'll go back in my notes, is that the board's view was that they didn't want them. I know we had the issue with CVS, which I think the one that actually has been cleaned up
Right.
to some
So if you
extent.
can look at your
But I will go
notes,
back and check my notes. and if
otherwise we're
it
gonna
has
be
to
going in circles.
Put into
here
a local
tonight.
law, we can do it.
Okay,
Okay.
fantastic.
Thank you.
That was
Okay.
sort of
Yeah, understood. Memory of this.
You do?
Takes,
oh, we can watch the meeting.
Okay.
we could.
The manager, are we done? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. The manager has a new business.
It is my great pleasure to appoint Michael Bevavino to the Historic Preservation Committee to fill an unexpired term ending 12/31/25.
Anybody have any comments or questions?
Get that to me.
Okie dokie.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn into executive session for collective bargaining, matter of personnel, a third-party administrator for workman's compensation?
Don't move.
Second?
Thank you all. It is 10:04. I'm sorry. Oh, all those in favor, yeah.
Yes, all those in favor, I apologize.
Sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It's 10:14, concluding our meeting. We will be, again in session next Wednesday. This was a very interesting meeting. I think it really is democracy at its best. I
Please.
think that, executive session will be
Yeah.
equally interesting for the five of us. We will see everybody next week.